Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you for joining me, Jag Singh, for another dose of Positive Minds on the Seek channel. Positive Minds is a show in which I like to bring on informative and inspirational individuals and give us advice and tips on how we can improve our lives and those people around us. Now, after the show, you can download my book, Unbreakable. Unbreakable is my story. It's an ebook. My story of growing up in East London in the 70s when I was a young lad, and shows all the violence and hatred I faced as a young child, as a young Sikh. That can be downloaded on Amazon, and it's an ebook. And also, after the show, if you want to catch up on some previous Positive Mind episodes, you can simply go to my YouTube channel, Jag Singh I Can, and catch up on and see all the amazing guests I've had on this show. Now, talking about amazing guests, today with me I have a filmmaker, Paul Suggitt, with me. Paul, thank you so much for joining us today on Positive Minds.
You're very welcome, Jag. It's good to be here.
Okay, so I'm going to take a deep breath before I say this, right? You are a director, fundraiser, writer, broadcaster, and also known as the Extreme Adventurer. Paul, that's a lot of titles, man. How'd you find the time, man?
I think you've captured that very well. And when you put it like that, it's like flipping heck. I do quite a few things. I try to make the most out of every single day. So waking up and just try and maximize on every single minute, hour of the day. And we can all achieve so much every single day if we put our minds to it.
And a lot sticks out about you, Paul, but one of the things that comes to my mind straight away is the fundraising part. I understand you do a lot of fundraising with charity. Tell me about that work, Paul.
Yeah, I do. I'm kind of known as an extreme adventurer because I go out and I'll push the boundaries beyond what most human beings would even contemplate doing. And I wear a funky hat when I do it, and that's what I'm known for. And the reason why I wear the hat is so I stand out from the crowd. So people, automatically start thinking, well, what's all of this about? So naturally, if you look different in this world, for some reason, people start either judging you or start asking questions. You just have to look at Boy George and people like that, because you're different, you stand out. And I use that philosophy and put a funky hat on, which got people interested in the charities that I raise money for. As an extreme adventurer, I go out there anyway. So for myself, many years ago, I got to a point in life where it was time for me to start giving something back positively to people less fortunate than myself. So I started embarking on a lot of extreme adventures, and I decided to wear the hat so I could stand out from the crowd. And I primarily raise money for kids' cancer for the Chris Lucas Trust. They're my main charity. They help raise funds for kids with a very aggressive cancer called rhabdomyosarcoma. Not a good survival rate on that. But again, without people crazy like me who go out there and start doing these adventures where you can actually get people to come and donate to it, they're never going to help fund the research to find a cure. So it's like a chain of events with that. And the other one is Hartlepool Ambulance Charity, where I raise money for a local charity in Hartlepool. And that was born on the back of 20 years working with Coast Guard Search and Rescue. And, so it's, again, working with an emergency service charity to raise money for them.
Paul, that is some amazing stuff you're doing there, man. And we need people like yourself. And obviously, what I do here at the Seek channel is also voluntarily, and I do lots of other stuff for that. But I just don't think there's enough. There's enough being done, and you're volunteering and helping people. And I love the hat. I love the idea that you wear that hat, so it gives the impression. It's a bit of a laugh, and also it gives the impression that, listen, I'm wearing a hat, and it's different, and I'm doing something different. And talking about doing something different, I used to do martial arts, Paul, when I was about 13, 14. And one of the things that our teachers, Sensei, used to make us do was run around the block. But it wasn't normal running around the block, it was running around barefoot. Okay? Now, we used to, that was some extreme training, man, and it was hard. It was like, oh, God, my feet. Now, you have taken it to a different level, right? Tell me about your barefoot challenge. Tell me about your barefoot challenge.
Yeah. One of my extreme challenges, if I put you in the picture, I've done the coast to coast 3 times now, the English coast to coast from St. Bees right the way across the country through the English Lake District, the Yorkshire Dales and the North Yorkshire Moors. And,
there's the hat, love it.
There's the hat. There's the hat. I did it on my bike, and most people take a few days to do it. I thought I'll just go for it, and I completed it in 12 hours non-stop. Then I went back a second time and I did it. I ran it through snow blizzards over the course of 3 days. And the final one back in 2019, I went back again and I completed the whole coast to coast completely barefoot. It took me 14 days. And do you know what? It took a lot of mind power and positive thinking to get through that. And I raised an absolute fortune for charity as well in the process.
Excellent, man. That is top. So, what kind of challenges did you face, Paul? What was the most challenging moment you had?
One of the biggest challenges was the pain factor. Now, in my mind, what I do is if I go and set out to put my stall out there that I'm going to go off and I'm going to go and do this crazy adventure, I'll put it out there public first of all, so there's no backing out. But secondly, I condition my mind, and what I do there is I've already seen that event complete in my mind. I just then need to figure out. I know when I'm going to start, and I've just then got to figure out the gaps in between. And I was battered with the weather. There was Storm Miguel, I think he was called at the time. It was absolutely battering the west coast where I started, and 10 out of the 14 days was just torrential rain on that adventure. But one thing I did find is your human limitations can be pushed beyond where you think. For instance, I was walking in all kinds of terrain, not grass, not just grass rather, all kinds of terrain. And the pain factor, no matter how much you train, the pain factor is always there. But it gets to a point where it's not going to get any worse. The only thing it can do is get less. So what I would find is I would find myself looking for a quick win here and there. And that was one way of getting around that situation, because I had to get, at one point, it took me around 4 hours to go half a mile. It was that bad on one part of that barefoot walk. But in my mind, there's no giving up. We all face challenges in life, and I'm a believer that, right, okay, there's something there in front of us. I need to just step back, catch a moment, and figure it out. And if you just take that moment, everything in this life can be figured out. You will find an alternative way around it. You just need to take a moment in life. And it's like that even at work. If you're immersed in something, whatever, just take a moment, take a look at the situation. And some people say, I'll just walk away and come back, and the answer's there. And it's absolutely right. It's how our minds are working. And, I apply the exact same logic into all of my adventures. Well, not just adventures, in everything that I do.
And Paul, just from what you just said there, Einstein said that imagination is more important than education, yeah? And you have actually put that to the test there, because you just said that you always see the end goal. You imagine
Yeah.
yourself, when you achieved it, you're there. Now, that is a great link between the mind, the spiritual self, the subconscious mind. You're just closing your eyes and seeing the end goal that you want. I mean, when I was a little kid, I just imagined myself being a writer, and I kept seeing myself as a writer, and lo and behold, and seeing myself as a TV presenter. And yeah, all these things I've seen all through the
Yeah.
years, I've kept. I thank God, and I've always seen these things, and I always encourage people to sit there. Even someone who goes to the gym, see yourself in your face of how you want to be. Obviously, you're not going to turn into Arnold Schwarzenegger straight away, but start step by step of I want to improve my biceps, I want to reduce my tummy a little bit, I want to get my thighs, whatever. These small steps, and it's always small steps. Paul, that is really some good stuff. Now, Paul, I don't know if sorry, the barefoot challenge, Paul. As I said, my running around the block in comparison in my karate class was nothing compared to what you've done. What kind of training did you do, Paul?
What I did is 13 months prior to knowing that I was going to go out and do this particular challenge, I decided just to go off, and I took those first steps on my own drive. And you know yourself, if you're going to nip outside of the house, your toes are going to start curling and so on. But it was like, well, I need to do at least 192 mile here, and if there's some diversion, possibly 200 mile, completely barefoot across all kinds of terrain. So I then started just going out and doing a couple of miles a day and dealing with that pain, processing it, boxing it off. So, right, okay, I understand how that works now. And then start expanding it, getting to 5 mile, 10 mile, 15 miles, with that. And probably the most I did in one day through training was around about 10 to 15 miles. But what I was doing is conditioning not just my feet to gain that extra thickness of skin and be a bit more resilient. It was about the mind. It was the mind that was the thing. I was aiming to make my mind completely bulletproof. But again, I like to think I've got a good mind, Jag, in the fact that I use the same principles that I'm talking about now, and I maybe just didn't understand them back in the day when I was a young'un. But I saw myself passing my driving test first time back in the day. I passed my driving test first time. A boyhood dream is I wanted to learn to fly. I passed my pilot license, and that was on
Brilliant.
the very first attempt. But I saw myself flying that aeroplane on my own without an instructor, and it's all about conditioning your mind. And what you're actually doing is you're telling your mind you've done it, you've achieved it. And on the barefoot one, I saw the end. I saw the end result. I could see the colours, the weather, people around, everything, and that became a reality in there months and months in advance, and I kept working on that. And then the day came, and most people would have been put off with the weather because it was horrendous. But I had to go, get out there and literally start off, even to the point there was certain things I never even factored in going through the Lake District. It was that wet, and I chose, the 2 weeks in the run up to the longest day, so I had more daylight hours to be able to do this. But the weather was that horrendous. Even through the mountains, going through a grass, it was that waterlogged that I ended up getting frostbite in my feet. And it was one thing I never factored in. So it's like, okay, I'm facing this now. I'm in the middle of nowhere. There's absolutely no one around anywhere. How am I going to get through this? And again, it's just the power of the mind just keeps you pushing on. And it's that's another step towards the goal, and that's another step towards the goal, and so on and so forth. And it's all about setting those goals in your head.
And there you go, guys. Watching right now, Paul just hit the nail on the head. Before it becomes a reality out here, it has to become a reality in here. Like I say, if you guys take
100%.
anything from this show, it needs to become a reality in here. Use the mind's eye. Okay, the mind's eye needs to be used. It's there. We all have imagination powers. We all have the ability to imagine something. Imagine it. And these great forces. I mean, I'm a big believer in the Bible as well, Paul, and I believe "Be bold and mighty forces come to your aid" has always been one of my top quotes that I continue to my kids. It's up to this day.
Mm.
I keep saying it to my kids all the time. Be bold and mighty forces come to your aid. And what you've just explained there, Paul, with your feet, with the weather, the rain, you had that thing that I'm got some sort of energy or some sort of force is gonna get me through this, and it's the inner peace. Now, Paul, I'm
Mm.
gonna call you, right? I'm gonna call you, and I think you've been called this before. I'm gonna call you the Jackie Chan of documentary making, right? You are the Jackie
That's
Chan
a
because
first. That's a first.
because Jackie Chan is someone who's always got involved with his films. Get to the nitty gritty.
Mm.
He's gone in there, and
Yeah.
he's actually been part of it. And he's not only starring in it; he's actually living the hard work. And you're exactly the
Mm.
same, Paul. And I think that name, Extreme
Mm.
Adventure, is well earned from what you've done.
Fair
And
play.
and
So,
talking.
yeah, sorry.
No, go on, Carol. Paul.
No, so what I was just going to point out is if we all have a positive outlook in this life and set our goals, we can actually be whoever we want to be. Whether that's a career change, whether that is something that you want to go and buy a new house, you've got a boyhood or a girl's dream that you want to achieve. I'm I'm telling you that that can actually done, and I'm proof of that you can, as long as you put that into your mind and you start living and believing like it's going to happen and it's there. You will achieve it. You will achieve anything in this life that you put your mind to.
That's put so nicely, Paul. Put so nicely. Now, Paul, talking about the Jackie Chan of documentary making, you also went to full lengths. Now, guys, there's on YouTube you can watch. It's called "Surviving Homeless." Now, that to me was a great project, Paul, and well done for that, Paul. It's a great
Thank you.
documentary. That's
Thank you.
amazing. How was that, man? What
Yeah.
inspired you?
Well, through COVID, everything just kind of shut down overnight. And as a filmmaker, I like to look for real life stories, not manipulated stories or anything like that. And anything I do, I'm straight down the middle. So I let the viewer make their own mind up on the subject matter. And I've helped homeless veterans in the past and so on. So what I decided to do, last year at the start of the year, is I went homeless myself with a camera crew and at a distance over the course of 6 weeks, and it was when the snow had kind of, it was just leaving, and so it was freezing. It was freezing cold, but it was also a time where everybody was off the streets, the shops were shut down, and so on. So it was like, how are the homeless actually going to survive this situation with minimal footfall for people to give them donations of food or money, and so on. And I was very, very humbled. I mean, I was, I'm not going to lie. I found it tough. I can live in the mountains. There's no problem whatsoever there. But I actually found it tougher living on the streets. So I put this documentary together. It was tough going. It is real life. It's a feature length. It's won awards at film festivals, but it's an absolute real snapshot of what actually goes on. And there's many people featured in it who were homeless. And once the filming stopped as well, rather than just use them in the film and that's it, forgotten about, every single person who was in the documentary was given help to try and help better their lives from that. Because for myself, that's the only fair thing. Some of them were so happy being on the streets. One guy I spoke to had been on the streets for 38 years. He had no intentions of coming off the streets because he actually found it claustrophobic by going indoors. His life was on the streets, but there were people who wanted to get off the streets. And I found that, realistically, we're only a couple of paychecks away from that. And certainly through COVID, people were losing their livelihoods, which meant that they may end up losing their houses. And so firsthand, I thought, well, if that happened to me, how would I survive that? And hence that documentary that came together. And as you say, it is out there on YouTube. It's coming up 300,000 views so far on that. It was a case of, it's not going to a streaming service. I'm putting this out for the wider public because everybody knows of homelessness. A lot of people overlook it because we think people are on drink and drugs and so on. Well, absolutely right. And when I got under the hood with that, they're on the drink and drugs because the next day gets worse and so on. And so they use it to numb the pain more than anything. And I did actually find that whilst a lot of people are humble towards the homeless, sometimes, human beings can also be very nasty to each other as well, with the public towards the homeless as well. So there's a lot of different angles come out in that documentary.
Paul, that was one tough project, man. More than I've doing that. And guys, I've seen it. Paul. It is tough. It is gritty. And the thing is, Paul, when I watched it, I thought to myself, do you know what? This is going to be over in an hour. 1 hour or whatever it is, it's going to be over. I'm going to be back to my luxury life, back to my house. But these guys are living this day in and day out. And I remember, Paul, when I first entered the world of motivation, there's a bookshop in Tottenham called Foyles, and that's when I bought my first motivational book, and I never looked back, man. And right near Tottenham Court Road, obviously I started reading more, and opened up what wisdom started coming in one way or another. And near Tottenham Court Road, there's a homeless place called Centre Point, and I remember. Those days I used to be like a young yuppie. I used to have a little briefcase and a suitcase and a glittery tie. But what I used to do was, because of what I was reading, I started actually speaking to homeless people. I used to buy them all a cup of tea, sit in a circle, and we used to have a little chat. And there I am with my suit and my briefcase and my tie, and I'm talking to these homeless people. And Paul, as people used to walk by, the looks I used to get, it was like, well, what are you sitting with them? You shouldn't. You look like someone who's doing well in life.
Yeah.
But I was earning a bit of money, so it didn't really matter, Paul. But I used to buy them all a cup of tea, and I used to talk to them. And even up to this day, I don't tell many people. I still speak to roughly about 10 to 12 homeless people every month. And out of 10, I'm trying to use the motivation I have inside me to inspire these people to live. Do get a little house or get a little pot that they can cook their own food on. And I'd say out of 10 people I speak to, at least 7 get motivated and start trying to do something, try and get help, try and go to the job centre, try to get cows in, and I'm proud of that. But the fact I'm trying to get across is that the way people used to look at me, it was like, why are you talking to them for?
Yeah,
that's terrible.
Yeah, I immersed myself because when I first presented myself to start filming it, I got told that you don't look homeless enough. So what I actually did in that documentary, you will see that those clothes are on the screen there now that I can see. They were borrowed off an ex-homeless person who had turned their lives around and came off the streets. And I wore those clothes, and to have to wear them day in day out, it was tough going. I mean, given the time of year, I had 5 layers on, and so, but I had to blend in, so this had to grow out a lot more to try and blend in with it. But I also found there's a turf war that kind of goes on, so you've got to always be mindful. If you're a new homeless person on the block, people have their areas, and so it was being mindful of that. But then other challenges were turned away from shopping centres because you're homeless. Councils posting letters, don't give homeless people any money and stuff like that. So if it's coming from councils and so on, how these people have a chance to get off the streets, I don't know. But if there's one thing I could do, it was just using the means that I have with my production company to be able to bring a spotlight to something so real.
And you did, Paul, and you did, and I advise everyone to watch this documentary. It's amazing. And Paul, let's quickly go back in time. We've got 4 minutes left, man. It's not enough time to talk to you, Paul.
We talk
But
forever, can't we?
so let's go back in time. Tell me the great inspiration you got from your father that made you do what you do today. What happened? Tell me that story
Yeah,
again, man.
16 years old. It's in my book, by the way, as well, where I cover that. Where my life changed is back in the day. Your father always wanted you to go and follow him into the work stream, and I had different plans. I didn't want to do that. My dad worked for the ICI, as it was back in the day, a really great, big chemical company. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do different things, and I purposely failed the entrance exams to do it. And my dad said to me, "You're going to be a failure. You're not going to amount to anything in this life." And rather than just take that and think, "Oh, my dad said that," and before he died, he did eat his words with that. I took that as my main motivation in this life, and from that point, my life only went that way. Everything was, I'm going to be the best at what I can, and I'm going to prove my dad wrong, because in this life failure is not an option. And it was literally born on that day, and that was one of the best things that ever happened to me in this life. And before, say, my dad passed away, we often spoke about that, and he said, I did that for a reason. I was like, I'm sure you did. Maybe you didn't realize it at the time, but it motivated me beyond all belief. Never take it in life that you're going to be a failure, because we're all in charge of our own destinies.
Paul, that is put so brilliantly, and it was so nice of your father to actually admit the fact, because negative motivation, it can be used as a powerful tool. Because sometimes when I'm playing tennis or something with my kids or whatever, I say to them, "Do you know what? You're not going to win. Yeah, you're going to lose," and something sparks inside them. How they take it, it's their choice. It sparks. Dad, we're going to beat you at this, and I think, yeah, gotcha. And that's exactly what your father. Some great wisdom there.
Yep, he did. He did. He did me proud with that.
Paul, listen, man, it's been great talking to you, and you're going to go from strength to strength with everything you're doing, man. I wish you all the best of everything you do, Paul. So very quickly, Paul, if someone wants to catch you, what you're doing on social media, Twitter, obviously speak about your YouTube videos again. Where can they catch you? Fire away, Paul.
Twitter, get yourselves on there. It's Paul_Suggitt with the surname on there. It's a bit of a queer name. Facebook, it's Paul Suggitt Official. Instagram, Paul Suggitt Official. Reach out to me, DM me, because I'm always in for helping people who want to get into the filming industry, and I'm all for sharing the knowledge and helping people understand. Go and pick a camera up and go and shoot life as it is.
Paul, listen, thank you so much for coming on Positive Minds today. It's been great speaking to you, man.
Thank you.
Okay, so there you go, guys. Paul Suggitt, at a young age, his father said to him, "You can't do it. You're not going to do it." Okay, now how a person takes that, it makes a big difference in their life. You could have taken it the fact that my father's right. I'm not going to try anything. I'm not going to get nowhere. But no, he was wisely inspired to get that camera, start videoing. You guys can do it too. Just get a camera if you're going to make a documentary. And these days we've got the phones, we've got the iPhones. Start making your own films, start making your own videos. You never know where it's going to get. If that's your passion, follow it. So that's what this show's about. Find your passion, live your dream, and make it happen. Okay, guys. So thank you so much for joining me and Paul today on Positive Minds. Keep smiling and keep moving forward. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.